Do you ever wonder why you react the way you do under stress and wish it could be different? Well, hello, friends. I'm Prema McKeever. I'm a somatic therapist and workshop facilitator, and I am passionate about helping people heal trauma and live a life they love. And in this video, I'm going to break down what the polyvagal theory means for your health, your happiness, and your ability to heal from trauma and move forward in life. Now, the polyvagal theory, you've probably heard of it, was put forth by the neuroscientist Dr. Stephen Porges, and it provides a really good framework to understand our nervous system's response to stress and trauma and how those responses then shape our healing and recovery process. And now, the first key lesson I want to understate here from the polyvagal theory is that how safe we feel is crucial to our physical and mental health. How safe we feel. It's not about actually being safe, not about mentally knowing we're safe, but about feeling safe. And this distinction is pivotal for our happiness and health and how we relate. And let's explore this a little bit further. So, the polyvagal theory overall is a model for how our autonomic nervous system works. And as the name suggests, the autonomic nervous system is the automatic part of our nervous system. It's the unsung hero that manages all our bodily functions that we don't consciously control: our heart rate, our breathing, our digestion, our hormonal health, our endocrine system. In essence, it's what keeps us alive and thriving. And our autonomic nervous system has two branches: the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The parasympathetic branch is primarily composed of the vagus nerve. When this branch is active, we can rest, we can heal, we can relax, we can connect with others, we can digest our food. The sympathetic nervous system becomes dominant when we need more energy. This allows us to run, fight, play sports, be active. And our autonomic nervous system is constantly shifting and adjusting depending on the needs of a particular moment and what's going to best keep us alive. And there's one variable that basically decides if we're going to be more influenced by that parasympathetic rest and relax or that sympathetic fight or flight branch. And that variable is, how safe do I feel? Because if you're safe, you don't need to use all these expensive resources, all this energy that might need to be there to run away or fight. Then your body doesn't want to turn them on because our energy is limited. Our body actually wants to be in ventral. It wants to have energy to relax and heal and hang out and socialize and do all those things that make life worth living. But if your body needs to protect you, it will take that energy and do what it needs to do by shifting it over to your sympathetic nervous system. So our autonomic nervous system's job is to keep us alive. And in order to do this, in order to figure out how safe am I and where does my energy need to be, we come to the second key lesson of today, and that is neuroception. Neuroception is our subconscious ability to detect safety or threat in our environment, and it's happening all the time automatically. Our brain is constantly scanning around us, taking in all the sensory input, the sights, the sounds, the smells, everything. And as close as instantly as possible, it is always answering that question, am I safe or am I in danger? And depending on the answer to that question, your neuroception will then trigger your autonomic nervous system to respond with more parasympathetic or more sympathetic influence. Neuroception is instant, it's automatic, but it's also shaped by past experiences. So if you smelled a particular smell or heard a certain sound during the worst day of your life, that smell or sound might remind you of that and make you feel really unsafe, even if you're no longer in actual physical danger. And I think that's really, really important to understand, as it opens the possibility for compassion towards ourselves and others, because then we can start to see why some people might have a hard time in certain situations while others do not. And by becoming more attuned to our neuroception and learning to distinguish between real danger and perceived threat, we can actually begin to rewire our nervous system and create new patterns of safety and resilience. So, based on what your neuroception perceives as your level of safety and what your nervous system responds is going to best keep you alive, then your body then transitions into what's called an autonomic state. So, here's the third key lesson. There are three basic autonomic states we live in every minute of our lives: ventral, sympathetic, and high tone dorsal. Now, very often we live in a blended state, some ventral, some sympathetic, but to make them easier to understand, I'm going to talk about them as if we're in one or the other. And so there's two things to start off with this. One, the state we're in, we don't get to choose. You can't really say to yourself if you're really stressed out at the moment or really activated about something and your sympathetic nervous system has kicked in. You can't really say to yourself, okay, calm down, relax. You can't just think your way out of it. And if someone tries to tell you just to relax, it's not really helpful. Our states can't be turned on and off like light switches. And then the second thing is that our nervous system state is the filter through which we experience the world. Sounds sound differently depending on what state we're in. Smell differently. Connecting with people feels easier or more difficult depending on what state we're in. Feeling our sense of connection or love for something that usually brings us joy will be different depending on what state we're in. So let's briefly go over these three states. The first is ventral vagal. This is part of the parasympathetic branch I spoke about earlier. And this state happens when you feel safe. What happens to your body then is that your heart rate slows down. You have access to all your bodily functions and muscles that are associated with ease and social connection. You can feel present and able to connect easily with other people. Vocal prosody, the rhythm and melody of your voice increases. Your facial muscles soften and become more expressive. Eye contact is easier. Your heart feels open. Even the middle ear muscles in your ear shift position so you can better hear the sounds of the human voice. And when you're in this state, your body's resources can be used for healing. This is the state where we can learn, where we have curiosity, where we can be mindful and creative. All these things that we love as humans, right? So the second state is sympathetic. Sometimes we need to shift out of that parasympathetic ventral state because our body needs more access to energy. And this could be for fun things like exercise or going dancing, but it also can be when we perceive we're not safe. And our nervous system then shifts into a fight or flight response. Your heart rate speeds up, digestion slows down, blood pressure goes up. And socializing and connecting with others is not important. So you actually lose that vocal prosody, or the rhythm of your voice changes. Your middle ear muscles, those actually change position because you no longer need to hear or try to hear other people talk. And instead, they tune to different sounds to hear like more low tone sounds, see if there's danger coming. So when we feel activated or scared, we hear different noises. And this is really important because people think that trauma is a psychological issue. But that doesn't explain why so many people whose lives have been impacted by trauma have chronic digestive disorders, higher rates of heart disease, and auditory disorders. And now the third state is high tone dorsal. This is also part of the parasympathetic nervous system, but a different branch of the vagus nerve. There's a low tone dorsal as well, but I'm not going to talk about that so much in this video. You can actually head over to my website and download a free 3-hour training on the Polyvagal Theory if you want to get an even fuller picture. So if your neuroception scans the environment and determines that I'm not safe, I cannot escape, I cannot fight back, then the dorsal system takes over, this high tone dorsal, and we enter what is commonly called freeze or dissociation. And this is a necessary, needed response that allows our body to conserve energy and protect ourselves. And in this state, our digestion shuts down, our metabolism slows, and we can feel disconnected, fatigue, numbness, fogginess, depression, and even faint. So it's important to understand that the way we respond to trauma isn't necessarily to fight or flight. It's oftentimes to freeze and shut down. And there does not even need to be a physical struggle before the freeze response kicks in. A lot of shame happens for people when they experience this shutdown state and they question, why did I shut down? And why did I freeze instead of running away or fighting back? And this is where we have to remember that this is automatically controlled by our nervous system. We don't get to choose our response. And so now for the fourth lesson. Once you begin to understand the physical changes that occur when we feel threatened or when we have to freeze to survive, the long-term physical and mental health issues that come from trauma all begin to make sense. Unhealed trauma leaves our nervous system in a position of rarely, if ever, feeling safe. And that leaves us stuck in more of that sympathetic and high-tone dorsal activation. And in doing so, that sticks us with many of the physical shifts that occur when our body is in these positions with the goal of just trying to keep us alive. You see, none of these states are inherently good or bad. They're all there for the purpose of keeping us alive. And they all do their job really well. But it's clear that our sympathetic and high tone dorsal systems can become overused because when we're constantly bombarded with stress, especially on top of unhealed trauma, that overwhelms us and that prevents the healing and restorative function of our ventral system from being able to work the way it's meant to. We are feeling driven, embodied beings. We cannot think our way out of trauma. It has to be worked with through our body and through our nervous system. So I hope this short talk has helped you see how the polyvagal theory is crucial for understanding how our nervous system body responds to trauma and the connection to our long-term health and happiness. If you want to go deeper, if you really want to get more into the intricacies of this framework and all the details and start to change your nervous system patterns, I invite you to visit my website and download the free 3-hour training full of information about the vagus nerve, nervous system regulation, and trauma healing. You'll find the link below in the video description. So thank you for joining me. I'd love to hear any questions, feedback, or comments. So let me know your thoughts below. Yeah, see you next time.